So, today I want to talk about something that I think mainstream psychology has wrong. So, the Buddhists believe that we are not the mind and we are not the body, but that's kind of a vague concept, and also people seem to associate that with religion. But one thing that I've observed over time that has become really clear to me after my awakening is that our mind isn't who we are. When you look at the conversations and pay really close attention to them, you'll see that they're just reactive. They're reacting to the world around you, and those conversations that go through your head, if you actually spoke them out loud, you'd realize that you're just preparing conversations to have with other people. You're never speaking to yourself. But if you pay really close attention to the nature of those conversations, you'll realize that a lot of them are criticizing other people or defending your own actions, basically justifying what you're doing. And this might come across sometimes like you're narrating your life, but basically you're trying to explain to somebody else, some imaginary friend, that the way that you're doing something is the correct way to do it. So when you actually sit and think about that, you'll realize that your mind is just trying to protect itself. It's basically fearing judgment from other people and coming up with a defense. And if it can't come up with an adequate defense for why you're doing something the way you are, it will preemptively attack other people. That is your advantage. And that's all our mind is doing, and that's all it's designed to do. And when you can see that that's all those conversations are, you can just ignore them completely. But the problem, though, is that when people get wrapped up in the stories that the mind tells them and then actually start to act them out physically in the real world. So I might get a defensive argument in my head, but I don't have to say it out loud. And the thing is, the more that you just observe those conversations and don't allow them to influence you, you'll realize that you don't get that little shot of adrenaline. You don't get that, negative emotional response that you get when you listen to the story and get wrapped up in the story. Now you can just let the story go by and realize that your mind is just rehearsing a conversation to have with other people. It's completely unnecessary. Now, how do I know this and how can I say it so convincingly? Well, when I was younger, I was a really skilled software engineer. I thought I was a rock star. I felt superior to everybody. And as I drove the streets or walked around, I would criticize people who I didn't think were as good as me or who I didn't think were as intelligent as me. And I would make all these little comments in my head. And I thought, well, that's not a big problem. I'm not really being mean because I'm not saying them out loud. But I could see that all of my conversations, I felt superior. But then, as my business started to fail and I kind of hit rock bottom, I noticed that the stories in my head changed. All of a sudden, instead of criticizing other people, I was defending my own actions and basically fearing criticism from other people. And so I would justify why I was driving an older car or, all these various arguments that were going through my head. And I would also see things like if somebody pulled up alongside me in a really nice sports car that I would just, oh my God, I would love to have that myself. But I would see that, and my initial thought might be, oh, wow, that's a really nice car. But then I'd hear my mind say, yeah, but I bet you didn't pay for that yourself. Or, yeah, but I bet I can drive faster than you. And so again, I was noticing, wow, okay, the nature of those stories in my head changed. And then the big revelation for me was when I had my awakening and those stories stopped completely. My ego death shut down those conversations in my mind completely for about a year. And so I would enter those same situations without a conversation in my head. And that is the fundamental key, that nothing changes whether you have a story in your head complaining or criticizing things, or whether you have a story in your head saying how great you are and how much better than everybody else you are. Nothing changes in the physical world around you. But those conversations that go through your head do have a big effect on your own physiology. We're all familiar with what happens when you imagine eating a lemon and your mouth starts to produce saliva. So when you imagine getting into a confrontation with somebody or criticizing them or, mentally attacking them, you actually fill your body with these harmful chemicals that are essentially designed to keep us safe when we're, threatened by a bear or a tiger or something like that. They fill our body with these chemicals that help us escape or avoid a conflict like that. But when you're arguing with somebody in your head or feeling superior, you're essentially in that same survival mode and you're releasing a small amount of those harmful chemicals. Now, if you can just let those conversations go, understand why they're entering your head, and then just ignore them, basically let them flow through like, water flowing down a river. As long as you don't get wrapped up in the emotional aspect of the story and you don't become the story and you don't embody the story, then you'll still get the conversation in your head, but you don't get the adrenaline. You don't get any of the chemistry that goes along with those conflicts just by ignoring the story and letting it go. And after my awakening, that all became so apparent and so clear, and it took me a few years, but I was able to write those thoughts down into a book that I'll put a link in the description below. And it really lays out the whole process step by step so that you can actually observe these processes going on within your own body and just learn to ignore them. And your life will change radically because you'll no longer go through the world complaining and criticizing things. You'll just be. And again, you'll realize that if somebody cuts you off on the highway, it doesn't matter whether you get angry on the inside or whether you're happy. The guy still cut you up. That's it. That's all that happened. But you can just let that go and maintain this peace and joy that just pervades your whole body. So just acknowledging that one fact that those stories in your head are not you, they're just your mind anticipating a threat and attempting to defend you. Just let them go. They're completely unnecessary and only do you harm. And certainly, if you get to the point where you act on those thoughts, then you really are genuinely doing harm to yourself. So love everything and love everybody. And you'll find that those stories in your head just stop. Because how can your mind criticize or complain about something or even prepare for an argument when you're walking around just saying that you love everything and feeling this intense joy inside towards everything that goes on in your life? It's so simple. Just be happy and be love, and your world will change radically. And if you love this video, don't forget to like and subscribe and share some love this direction too. All right, thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day. Love everything and everybody.